anywhere in today's Berlin, and remains of Nazi Germany are just beneath your feet. Berlin was the battlefield of the 20th century. And today, sealed up and forgotten beneath its streets, are the secrets of this city's dark past. From the megalomaniacal visions of a madman buried beneath this park.
This would have been the highway to his dream world, his Germania that would have lasted 1,000 years. And this is the last link to that.
To a bomb-proof subterranean city abandoned next to today's modern metro.
Yeah, you can hear this now, right? You can hear the metro.
It's a time capsule of terror.
This is a weapon.
This is a weapon.
That, believe it or not, all started innocently with beer.
Look at the size of these. These all would have been filled with beer, right?
I've been given special access into Berlin's sealed-off underworld to find out how the world up above doesn't crumble into the one abandoned down below.
If you never see me again, tell my mom I love her.
We're peeling back the layers of time to uncover Hitler's underground lair, Berlin. Home to 3.4 million people, Berlin is Germany's capital city. It's young by European standards, but in its 700-year history, Berlin has gone through more transformations than almost any other capital city in the world. But it was the events of the 20th century that left the deepest mark. Walk around the city and the Berlin of old is nearly unrecognizable. But it's still there, and it's closer than you think.
I'm Eric Geller. I'm in Berlin, Germany. Ground zero for some of the greatest conflicts of the 20th century. From the destructive reign of the Nazis to the fear inspired by the Berlin Wall, it's a city full of dark secrets. And yet, much of Berlin's underworld has never been explored, until now.
We'll peel back the streets of Berlin to reveal some of the greatest examples of wartime engineering. We'll go beneath the modern skyscrapers, below the metro lines, and into the off-limit and abandoned nerve centers of one of the most secretive and brutal regimes of the Western world, the Nazis.
Mr. Sasha, guten Tag.
Hello, Eric.
Thank you for helping me out here.
Sasha Kyle is a member of the Berlin Underworlds Association. The group was founded in 1997, just 8 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall. And Sasha and his group were my key to getting underground.
Sasha, why is it important for you that Berlin and the world sees this secret?
Because it's a time capsule for the Berlin history, and we always can learn from our history. If you don't know it, you are damned to repeat it.
Sasha and his group have been the first to set foot in many forgotten Nazi and communist sites sealed off beneath the streets. In the past 10 years, they've found a German truck buried in the rubble 30 feet beneath the ground. Loaded weapons, helmets, half-written notepads, even installations of the Warsaw Pact, frozen in time in the underground lair of the Nazis. A hidden world that for 70 years has managed to support the tons of increasing pressure bearing down on it from the growing city up above. I would meet up with Sasha and the Berlin Underworlds Association later. But first, I wanted to do some exploring on my own. My first stop was a neighborhood in East Berlin. Today, the street was lined with apartments, but more than 60 years ago, it was the nerve center of the Nazi Party. Hitler's chancellery, Goebbels' propaganda ministry, and the foreign ministry of the Reich all stood here before they were destroyed by Allied bombs in the war. Entire bunker cities with roads and cars once connected these buildings. Today, like the buildings themselves, most of the bunkers are destroyed. But there was one Nazi building still standing. It was the Traffic Ministry of the Third Reich. The Traffic Ministry was best known for building Germany's famous Autobahn. Today, the building was abandoned and full of bullet holes. But I found a way into its back courtyard to see if I could find existence of a lost bunker.
All around us is what would have been the former East Berlin. This was it. This was World War II. All those holes and strife from bullets.
Hundreds of workers once filled the Traffic Ministry. It would have been one of the Allied forces' biggest targets. That means there was no doubt that there would have been a bunker on the premises in case of attack.
This looks like the entry to a bunker. This is not open to the public. I mean, if you look at the conditions, any step I'm going to take, I might cave in. All right, I'm going to go down here. I'm going to slowly descend. And I'm walking kind of gingerly because, again, I can't tell these boards how old they are. And I can see chambers from right here. This is a corridor that leads to another series of bunkers.
I was more than 15 feet beneath the courtyard of the traffic ministry and just over 150 yards from where the now destroyed Führer bunker once sat, the very site where Hitler and his wife Eva Braun took their lives. While they are located near each other, there is no evidence that the traffic ministry bunker and Hitler's would have been connected. But there was evidence of tunnels connecting this bunker to the subway and airport. Crumbling walls prevented me from finding these subterranean escape routes.
And this is the jewel that I would like to go into, but I don't know if I can. Appears to be some labyrinth of rooms, but this is stopping me from going in there. And that's stopping me from going in there. So I guess I'm going in there. If you never see me again, I'll tell my mom I love her. It looks like there might have been a toilet right here. There's ovens right here. Look, there would have been kitchens, right? In some of these places, there would have been kitchens.
There were remnants of kitchens, ventilation, plumbing, untouched since the fall of the Nazis.
This looks like, in here, really looks like what you'd imagine a bunker to be. I'm sorry we can't get in here.
Unfortunately, one of the walls inside had collapsed. But soon Sasha and the Berlin Underworlds Association would be back to investigate and piece together the clues of the past. I had just gotten my first taste of the mystery that is Berlin's underworld.
There was a whole wall in there that had caved in, and I'm probably going to leave this bunker be. But I'm told there are vast labyrinths of bunkers in this entire city. Now I'm going to find them.
Thousands of bunkers are hidden beneath the streets of Berlin. But it was no easy task to put them there. The name Berlin is Slavic for swamp, and it sits in the lowland plain of the Berlin-Warsaw Glacial Valley, created during the Ice Age. But building a city on top of this swamp means you can't dig down more than 10 feet without hitting water. So how was Hitler able to build over 1,000 bunkers beneath the streets? He can thank another infamous dictator, Napoleon III, for paving the way. After the Prussians defeated Napoleon III in the Franco-Prussian War in 1871, France was forced to pay reparations to the new German Empire. Most of this money went straight underground. Berlin could finally afford to utilize the expensive but effective modern pumping technology and waterproofing techniques to create their underground infrastructure. The metro was built in the early 1900s, and the first 7 of the eventual 88 miles of watertight tunnels were carved out under Berlin's sandy soil. 33 years later, in preparation for the impending war, German engineers led by Hitler's architect Albert Speer began their difficult and secretive journey into the underground. Since then, Berlin's underworld has been synonymous with secrecy. While Nazi monuments and buildings were transforming the skyline, beneath the ground, subterranean construction was going on at a ratio of 1 to 3. That means for every 1 foot of construction Berliners saw above the ground, there was at least 3 feet of construction going on below. And this hidden world of Hitler's is still there. It's dangerous, it's dark, and buried up to 150 feet beneath the ground. It's not easy to get to, unless you know where to look. Up next, Berlin is more than just bunkers.
All right, going into a tunnel from the past.
Hitler's own nephew, William Patrick, served against him in World War II as a medical corpsman in the U.S. Navy.
When Hitler came to power, he had plans to transform Berlin into a city that would rival ancient Rome. He called his vision Germania. And like the Romans, he commissioned structures that would both awe and intimidate. Most of his plans were shelved when the war came in 1939. But somewhere beneath this park, a piece of Germania still remains.
Architecture had always been a passion of Hitler's, and he began sketching plans of Germania's future monuments when he was in his early 30s, a time when Nazi Germany seemed like a far-fetched fantasy. But on January 30th, 1933, Hitler was named Chancellor of Germany, and his fantasy was about to become reality. One of his first orders of business was to transform Berlin into a city worthy to be the capital of his 1,000-year Reich. He would call his new city Germania and would model his buildings after those of ancient Rome. Today, remnants of Hitler's Germania still remain.
Dietmar,
Hi, Eric.
wie geht es Ihnen? How are you?
Oh, fine. It's get good.
Sasha sent me to meet his colleague, Dietmar Arnold, the chairman of the Berlin Underworlds Association.
Here on this place, there was a Führer monument.
Dietmar's an urban historian and underground expert. He and his group have mapped out Hitler's hidden underground, an underground most have no idea still exists.
So again, explain to me, what is Germania?
Germania was a Nazi urban planning to change Berlin to the main capital on the world. Nazis like to occupy the whole world, and so they need a really big capital for this, you know.
But Hitler didn't just need a big capital. He needed one that would convey the message of the Reich. For him, architecture was much more than just buildings. It was, as he said, the word in stone. The architect he hired to help convey this message was Albert Speer. Speer and Hitler set out to redesign the capital, and Dietmar had the plans to prove it. He showed me blueprints of Hitler's dream capital city, most of which was never built. But a series of underground tunnels were constructed, and they still existed beneath our feet. The tunnels were called the Axis tunnels, and they were meant to carry millions of citizens in and out of Hitler's Nazi-dominated world. Today, they're hidden below Tiergarten Park.
You like a helmet?
Yeah, please.
You need this.
Okay,
Okay,
let us go.
we can go on.
Okay,
Put on this.
all right.
Now you can come.
All right, going into a tunnel from the past.
I climbed down over 50 feet and over 60 years back in time into what they call the blind tunnels.
Oh wow, this is it, huh?
This is one of the last parts of Germania.
I'm not sure how well I can see this, but I can see the water. The ground is flooded out. It looks, what, about a ceiling maybe 20, 25 feet high. I see rebar along there, and you hear a tremendous echo.
Hello! It's like in the mountains.
Germania's underground highway tunnels were meant to be finished in 1950 and were supposed to be almost 8,000 feet long. But only 10% were completed, and I was walking down the middle of what would have been Hitler's four-lane highway. The highway sat 30 feet beneath the traffic-free parade route leading into Hitler's dream world. 750 feet of tunnel remained, 3 levels deep. 2 levels would have carried cars in and out of Germania's capital, and the deepest level was for the metro. Today, the tunnels were full of water seeping in from the wet ground just beyond the concrete. But if Hitler had his way, I'd be standing in the middle of one of the most important highways in the world. One that led people in and out of the nerve center of Nazi Germany.
We're looking at what would have been Hitler's highway. This would have been the highway to his dream world. His Germania that would have lasted 1,000 years. And this is the last link to that.
But what makes these tunnels even more impressive is their construction. These concrete walls would have had to support the massive weight of the buildings Hitler was planning to build up above. Hitler commissioned buildings meant to dwarf the world's most famous structures, like one of his inspirations, Napoleon's Arc de Triomphe in Paris. Hitler commissioned Speer to build his own, only his had to be 4 times higher and 6 times wider than the one in Paris. It would weigh over 400 tons. That's a lot of weight sitting on top of Berlin's unstable sandy soil and on top of Hitler's subterranean highway. But the arch was just the beginning. Hitler's plans for Germania began in 1935 and were based on 2 huge intersecting boulevards. The existing Unter den Lindenstrasse, or Under the Linden Street, was to be extended, and the road was to be widened to 200.
Look at the size of these. These all would have been filled with beer, right?
I've been given special access into Berlin's sealed-off underworld to find out how the world up above doesn't crumble into the one abandoned down below.
If you never see me again, tell my mom I love her.
We're peeling back the layers of time to uncover Hitler's underground lair, Berlin. But in its 700-year history, Berlin has gone through more transformations than almost any other capital city in the world. But it was the events of the 20th century that left the deepest mark. Walk around the city and the Berlin of old is nearly unrecognizable. But it's still there, and it's closer than you think.
I'm Eric Geller. I'm in Berlin.
Walk anywhere in today's Berlin, and remains of Nazi Germany are just beneath your feet. Berlin was the battlefield of the 20th century. And today, sealed up and forgotten beneath its streets, are the secrets of this city's dark past. From the megalomaniacal visions of a madman buried beneath this park.
This would have been the highway to his dream world, his Germania that would have lasted 1,000 years. And this is the last link to that.
To a bomb-proof subterranean city abandoned next to today's modern metro.
Yeah, you can hear this now, right? You can hear the metro.
It's a time capsule of terror.
This is a weapon.
This is a weapon.
That, believe it or not, all started innocently with beer. Home to 3.4 million people, Berlin is Germany's capital city. It's young by European standards.